Hello, everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Relationship Advice for Women. We have our special guest here speaking on the segment we've been doing called Breaking the Silence of Domestic Violence. Her name is Mrs. Jade, and she'll be telling her testimony. My name is Jonna. I also go by Grace, and I thank you all so much for allowing me to bring these things to light that has been hidden in the darkness. So, Jade, start from the beginning. Tell us about the relationship that's been causing you um, this type of distress. Where did it
Okay.
start?
So I wouldn't call it so much distress, but it has been challenging with growing. It's been a growth situation. So this is my husband. I have been married to him for almost 5 years. We got married in 2020, but I've been with him since I was 16.
Mm,
So we met on the bus. He was coming from work, and I was on my way to meet one of my fast tail friends, if you will, for her birthday. I just remember this time, I was really wild around this time. So this was it's important because it makes me understand how I even was attracted to my husband. So when I met him, he told me, he was a little younger than what he actually was, and we hit it off though because it was a genuine relationship. He provided me support. He made sure that like I went to school and stuff, that I graduated, and that I just kept on my journey to be who he saw me to be. Um, it was later on, and it was actually this year where we came into the fact that he groomed me, that he got me at an early age and he groomed me. And it was something that he actually acknowledged. So it was something that we had to talk about. But I'm at that point now. I'm an adult. I have my own business, I have my own goals. And he is on support of that, knowing that I have grown and I have evolved and I'm no longer able to be groomed and shaped into who he wants me to be. So now he has to get used to the new woman that I've become in adulthood, because it's something that he still wants to fight for our relationship.
okay. So, how old was he when you all met? I know you said you
He
were
was
16.
Yes, he was 20. He was turning 21. He told me he was 18.
Okay. So, why does he say he groomed you? What was that?
No, that was me mostly, because like I just sat and thought about it. He wasn't as mentally grown as I guess I was at 16, having to go through the life I went through before then. How I was brought up. I was always responsible, and me being the oldest and having to take care of everybody. But it was something that I thought to myself, because it's like I'm so young. I have his three kids, and the quality of life isn't of what we would set at the social standard, which is why I left in 2023.
Okay, so you left in 2020. How old are you now?
I am 29.
Okay, so you're 29. You all
Mm-hmm.
met at 16. Met him at 16,
Mm-hmm.
and you got married at how old?
Sorry.
How old were you when you got married?
I was, how old was I in 2020? I'm 29, 24.
Okay. So you got married at 24. Um when did it start becoming abusive?
Uh, in 2019 is when it became abusive. After, no, it was 2016. After I had my second baby, he was cheating. Um, and I remember I was the first one like to ever throw a punch. So this is why I'm able to go back, because I was also an aggressor from time to time, because when I first found out he was cheating, I felt like he was playing in my face, and I felt like I needed to do something about it. But reflecting, maybe I shouldn't have, because I set the tone to where it was okay to put your hands on me if you got angry, or in a playful way.
Mhm. Yeah, I understand that. I really do. So you hit him. What did what how was his response?
He just stood there because I got him in the shower. Um, and I had his phone, so I threw his phone at him and I like sucker punched him. And he ended up going to work with a black eye that day.
Dang, you and see, I'm sorry.
We don't
I'm
talk
not trying
about
to.
the other side of things. We
Yeah, this is
don't.
the other side. No, we don't talk about the other side. And I was going to say, I remember when I had recently gotten married. I I used to hit my husband sometimes too. And I remember when he said, I'm not gonna put up with this. I'm not gonna put up with you hitting me like this. And I like that was the very beginning of our marriage. And I took
Mm-hmm.
him at his word. I was like, I can't just be, hitting somebody when I grew up around it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I'm not gonna put up with this. And I believed him. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I believed he wasn't, and I didn't want to lose him because I couldn't control my emotions. So, and I
Mm-hmm.
know this is not about me, but I think since we're talking about this, I remember I had scared myself one time. Like I really
Mm.
did. Like I
What
scared myself.
happened?
I just like I might, and this was before I remember I had like put my nails into him because he made me so angry, and I was like that's why I scare myself because I'm like I shouldn't use my hands to harm anybody. Like, and I'm like, why did I allow him to make me so angry to the point that felt like I needed to do that? And so I was like, I began to declare this over my hands. I would just
Mm.
say, my hands are to heal, not hurt. My hands are to help and not harm. And so I'm glad we're talking about this side because early in my marriage, I had to know that you can't be doing that or you're going to lose this. So I'm sorry for inserting myself like that.
No.
I just like to be honest and keep it real too. Because there is two sides to this. Now, what happened? He was in the shower. He was in the shower. You caught him by surprise. And then when he got out the shower, what did he say?
He was wrong. So he was salty anyway because he
Mm-hmm.
got caught. He really couldn't do anything about it. And this was around the time that one of my kids did like home visiting. So I had two kids at this time. I was there a year and one day apart. My baby's birthday, my baby girl birthday, um, is today. So it was in 2016 when all of this like first started taking place. And it wasn't something that happened every day either, but it was still like an episode because later on, like he had choked me and I called the police on him.
Hold up.
And I called the police on him. So this was later. So I
Okay.
I found out, okay, so in 2016, let me go back because I'm just playing everything. So in 2016, I had my daughter. At the time I was working at the bank and I was like having real bad stomach pains and I ended up having surgery that April when and got my gallbladder removed. And it was
Mm,
around that time he started acting funny. So in July of 2019 is when I found out that he was cheating on me. And for this
mm,
time, we have been together for a long time. Backstory:
mhm,
when I went to college, I cheated on him. I had even left him, at that point. And Now that we talk about it, I don't even know why the man still wanted to be with me. Like that's crazy. Cause what? Um, but at the time it was just like, okay, you want to play with me, you don't have to be here. And then I'm going through all of this stuff. So yeah, so later that year in like December, November, December, um he had he choked me up. He wanted to go out, but I was going out instead of him, and like he grabbed hold of me and he choked me up. And my grandma was living with me at that time. So he choked me up and he threw my phone outside. And I wasn't cheating back on him. I
This
wasn't.
was back
So
when you were in college?
this was when I came home from college. I had already come home from college. I came home
Okay.
from college in 2014. And then in 2015, my son was born. My firstborn, which is my son, my only son. He was
Mhm,
born in 2015. But maybe 2 weeks before I had my son, he proposed to me then. And our wedding was supposed to be the next year, in the summertime, after I had my daughter and after I had gotten myself together, but he had cheated before the wedding. So I didn't marry him.
mm,
I just kind of stuck it out, because one, I needed help with the kids and I was still in love. So but I would not marry this man. In 2017, I like rebooked the hall where we were supposed to get married at, and I started my business instead.
mhm,
I married myself to my business in my head at the time. But in 2019, he had proposed like a few more times and I kept saying no. And then I finally said yes again because I was at a place where I healed from the infidelity. And then my mom had said one thing. She was like, "Didn't you cheat on him when when you was at college?" And I was
mm,
like, "Yeah, I did." Okay. And she was like, "So stop acting like you so perfect." So I took
mhm.
him back.
Yeah.
Mine
Okay.
in this time, you got a question?
No, go ahead.
Oh, cause stop me when you need that. Stop me when you need to. So, after that, I started building my business. So in 2017, I started building my business. That's the only thing on my mind. I'm linking up with people who they're flying me to different places, exposing me to different things, and he was working. He had the same job, with the same girl that everything happened. She ended up leaving maybe a year later, but it was still like I just didn't want to really be with him for real.
Mhm,
And then we
mhm,
got married in 2020. He proposed, and I was over it. And I decided to be married to him. I decided to do it. So we did that. It was a pandemic wedding. And we just started going at it. Like we started clashing. And it was more clashing than it was when he was cheating and I was mad and I was like, after all the hurt was gone, after we was married, we had started to really uncover the layers that we never addressed. Like after all that time, we had the surface level of each other. And I felt like now it's not healthy. So now I'm in therapy because I had gotten big. Like the conditions that we were living in was not healthy at all. We had roaches and all types of stuff. Like it was not healthy. And I saw that, but I was not going to stop pursuing what I was pursuing. And then I came into the partnership that I have with a nonprofit organization and of creatives. And they were building up the building because we have a content warehouse. So they were building up the building, and I would be there too. And sometimes we wouldn't be done until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And he thought I was cheating on him, and I wasn't. He never really addressed it, but this is what led me to leave him because one night I did get in there pretty late. The kids were up. You could tell he had like some built up animosity because we communicate poorly, and then he made it seem like he slapped me because he told my daughter to come take his sweater off of me. I had his sweater on, and he told my baby to come take my sweater off. She had to be 7 at the time, and I told her to stop. Don't let your daddy send you off. And I slapped her. He got mad and he slapped me. But I got mad because you don't do that in front of my baby. You know, you don't tell her to even disrespect me. So how much respect do you have for me? And then the next day, I went to my mom's house. My aunt, who's younger than me, like my sister, and my mom, they asked me who hit me. And I'm like, did he slap me that hard? Because that night I went to bed angry. And then the next day I just started sleeping in a different room. But at this point he was passive, being very passive aggressive, like a speed in a car, like as if he was angry. And and I was just like, that's abusive behavior. And it was around Christmas time too. When I left December 6th. And he was like, and I can understand a little bit, but at the same time, you don't put your hands on me. So December 6th, I left. I got a restraining order on him. And I had him leave, escorted from the house that we had, because it was a low income apartment, but also it was in such bad conditions. Why do you have me and my kids living in here? And I literally just called the suicide hotline because I'm living an unhealthy life. I'm overweight, like I was 260 pounds. I've lost like 30 pounds since then. But I just knew I was not in a healthy mental state. So one night I got introduced to a new client, which it had a nightclub, and but it was for older people. So it was like just the older people, they get together, they step and everything. But they needed somebody for their graphic designs because I'm a marketing program manager. So I went in to help them consult and to build it, and it was like maybe like 12 o'clock in the morning, 12 a.m. And one of my mentors was like, didn't you say he's been, mistreating you? And I was like, yeah. He was like, you don't have to go back to that. And so that night that I left, I slept in my office. And when I did that, he was calling around looking for me. He had the kids still. And I just called my grandma and let her know what happened. And she asked me if I had cheated on him, and I didn't. I never did. Now later on, like during the separation, because I was just so gung ho on leaving this man. Like, no, we don't have a chance together. It's over. Like, it was completely over for me. Like, we would never have to talk again. None of that. Like, for 5 months, he didn't even know where I lived. I didn't know where he lived. We would meet up and exchange the kids to share time. Like, it got just real ugly. And during our separation, we both admitted like we did do our own thing. But now we're in a place of, repatching that, and I'm in therapy still. And he's looking for options of therapy where people are not, because I know a lot of people, so where it won't be biased, and to where he's comfortable talking to somebody. So that is pretty much, the story and what's going on. But I wanted to share my story about domestic violence because sometimes we do go back and sometimes we do, work it out. But I do feel like there needs to be strict boundaries in place. There needs to be mental health, barriers, making sure like if it anger management is needed, if therapy is needed, if you need to deal with unhealed traumas, like that's important. Because if those things can't get sorted out and you can't come to the root of the problem, then it is time to leave.
Mhm. Okay,
So
I have a few questions I want to ask. And so in the beginning, you said he cheated. How long was he cheating? I think you found out in 2019. Was that?
yeah. So he was cheating with this girl probably for maybe like 6 months that I know of. But she worked
Mhm.
with him. And they had like this nasty culture at work where everybody had their work wife or their work husband, where they was actually doing stuff with them. And it was just like the environment too. Like, it was, he would always come and tell me stories about these people who, had boyfriends and girlfriends and wives and husbands, and how they would be involved with each other. And I guess he needed a story too.
Mm,
So I I was ready. I was over it then, but I was just silent about, that abuse, because it is still abuse. Like, that is emotional abuse. That's
yeah,
betrayal.
absolutely. And
And
so, no, go ahead.
go ahead. That was it.
How did you find out about it again?
He had the girl saved in the phone under his best friend's name. So either he was gay, low key, or this is a woman. Like, I had a good time with you, boo. And when I seen that, I just automatically knew. I knew.
Hmm. Yeah, and remind me again of how, like, did you just stay with him? Like, what happened after that? Did you leave him at that point?
No, no. This was in 2016. I went through a phase where I just stopped speaking up for myself. I was just like, okay, well, these are my circumstances. And I just chose to stay in those circumstances and figure out how I was going to build my business. That was the only thing that was on my mind.
And did he continue? Has he cheated on you since?
No, not that I know of, but, or anything that I caught or anything either.
And yeah, so you said you had began pursuing something, and you said you just started focusing on your business and pursuing. What was that you were pursuing
Um,
specifically?
so at that time in 2017, I started doing life insurance. So in 2016, in December, I started doing life insurance. So I was pursuing something.
I'm sorry, you broke up. Okay.
So I was pursuing a life insurance venture, because that was like my entry into entrepreneurship. At the time, I was working at the bank. I started as an intern, and they hired me permanently. And that was just, another highlight of, my career. So I just became super career oriented, super career focused, because that was the most important thing to me, that and raising my kids. I was very involved in volunteering for different programs that offered my children and I resources that we needed, because I was still a young mom who had hopes and dreams, but still didn't have the education I needed, because I owed money to my previous school. So getting my transcripts was hard, but also finding a job that allowed me to take care of young kids. Like, that was a struggle for me.
Mhm.
And he was working, so he was mostly the provider for the longest.
Mhm.
But the providing to me wasn't quality. It wasn't a quality he wasn't being a quality provider.
It wasn't
It was like,
holistic provision. It wasn't providing in all the areas you needed. It was just
yes,
probably finances.
yeah, mostly
And
finances, but we were disconnected.
yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up because I think I answered this a while ago, but I just put out this TikTok um answering a question, like people want to know, how do I stay, cuz I don't want to leave my husband. He cheated on me or whatever. And I answered what basically what you were just saying, like you kind of get you drown and focus on your purpose. You focus on
Hmm.
whether that be your, a purpose is bigger than just a career, but it can start in a career. It's about family, and your purpose also is a mother, to be a mother to your children. So getting super absorbed in your purpose does help you to stay in a marriage that you don't want to leave, because you ain't focusing on the negative, you focusing on what you're really
On
passionate
you.
about.
and
Right.
and self development, personal development. is the biggest, because without me adjusting my mindset, because also in 2019 I started to see a life coach, and this life coach was actually one of Bob Proctor's mentees. So she helped me overcome a lot of those limiting beliefs, because we can actually, create the world that we want to live in. We don't have to attract. Pretty much, I'm not going to attract the negative. I'm going to continue on a positive, because at the end of the day, I felt like my family was intact. We are all we know. We are all we have at the end of the day, and that's still going to be my children's father. But we've had several conversations about, if we were ever not to be together, you know we still need to be as enterprising as possible together, because the goal is to make sure that our kids never have to struggle in the way that we did.
Right. And so my next question, following that was, you know, it seemed like you got very invested in this, which is good, but sometimes I feel even with myself, and I have to reset often, that we get kind of out of balance with coming home at 2 a.m. and 12 a.m. And him being with the children. I wanted to know, did he become very angry because he felt neglected?
I believe that's exactly what happened. I really do feel like it. And I'm on him because I need him to take this action. Like, we've talked about it. I've talked about it with my therapist, but I need us to go see a professional so that they can really help us uncover it. Like, we are taking the actions, but I need to make sure, like, your actions, like, you mean it. Show me that you mean it, and let's actually go to therapy for this together. And he's scared of a therapist, because, I mean, as a black man, he dealt with a lot of trauma himself. Like, his father wasn't in his life. My father, been in prison half of mine, and he just came home. So as I'm adjusting to that, I'm seeing, how my relationship with my husband in a way mirrors my relationship with my dad. So as I'm continuing to heal myself, I'm I'm open to keeping my marriage, because once you get married, you're really supposed to be married until death do us part, unless it's infidelity. But 9 times out of 10, a lot of people, they're able to survive infidelity and still love each other. So I'm not saying that that's right, but that's what happens. And I'm just here to, just share my version of what I've gone through, what I'm experiencing, and it's hopeful. It's a hopeful situation, because
Yeah.
even if we get upset at each other, he still has his place, I still have my place, and as we figure this out, we know that if a pivot needs to happen, and if we uncover something that says, okay, this is not the direction to go in, I'm still in that exploratory phase. He's still in that exploratory phase as to, is this what we're supposed to be doing? Is this a healthy situation for us to be in? Because right now it's healthy, because we both want to work it out. We both want to see if it's working, but what are we going to uncover? Is this something that we can get past? We acknowledge, some of the resentments that we have had, with each other. We've been able to communicate some of the things that bothered us. Like, with me, it was the grooming. Like, dude, why would you even talking to me in the first place? And then on his end, I did, like, I have been very selfish, but it's because of what has happened. It's me protecting myself, but I'm also uncovering these patterns in a lot of different relationships that I have built in business, that I have built, with other men around me. So I'm just realizing, just these patterns and what needs to be addressed, going forward, because it is a healing journey. And if I could heal with my husband, that would be an amazing thing. But if it's something that is not healthy, we're both willing to, go the other way.
Right. And so okay, so when you said, are y'all considered, and this is just a quick yes and no, are y'all considered separated now, but working on it?
Yes.
Okay. And so you said, when y'all were doing y'all own thing at one time, and like when was that, and does that mean you all were sleeping around with other people or just dating other people?
For me, I was talking to people. I did have an experience where I did sleep with somebody, and so did he. He did admit to sleeping with someone else as well. But that was like a one-time thing, and that was like 5 months into us being separated. Because, like I said, I was gung ho on a divorce.
Mm,
So, but I still, if you call it what it is, it was
mhm.
still infidelity within,
Yeah.
the marriage. But we weren't together. We were living in two
Okay.
separate houses. And that's something that I'm not upset about because I wasn't with him. I was okay with. I'm like, look, you're not my man right now. Like, I need to figure out like this legal situation. But
Yeah.
once my grandmother passed away, we still kind of were at odds. But he was coming around, for emotional support. When my granny passed,
Mm,
and we started to rekindle,
mhm.
what we had. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm glad you brought that part up because I wanted to know, it there was a time that you confided in your grandmother, and she asked you if you had cheated, and you said that you didn't. I was wondering what would make her ask you that.
Because that was what he was saying. Like that's what
Oh.
he felt. Yeah.
Mm. So
And
he
it
spoke to
wasn't what a
her.
person. Yeah, he still talks to my sisters I don't talk to. He talks to my mother who doesn't speak to me. So
Mm.
he stays connected to my family. Like, yeah.
And so when you said you all are in an exploratory phase, what does exploratory phase mean to you?
Meaning if these boundaries aren't set, if we don't go to therapy, if we don't get it figured out, if we don't get to the bottom of it, then
Hmm.
it may not be it.
It may not work. And so,
Yeah.
okay, so why does your mother not speak to you?
My mom didn't raise me. She was a 15-year-old mom. She did the best she could to support me, but my mom, it's like, you know how history repeats itself. So I
Hmm.
can't tell her story, but in her marriage, she's dealt with what I'm dealing with at like 10 times the height. And I'm trying to break that cycle.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And my mom just has a lot of things that she needs to deal with as well. And she's made posts on Facebook recently, apologizing to all her children and
Hmm.
everything. So that is something that I don't even want to uncover right now here. But yeah, that is part of, my
Okay,
upbringing and some of the things I had to experience.
okay, and but we don't have to uncover that. But if why does your sister not speak to you then? And then, but why does
Oh,
he speak to them? If I don't get that.
that's the part that was another reason why I was upset as well. Because why do you talk to them? But he does keep my kids connected to the family that I don't talk to.
Okay, that makes.
Um, so he's like the bridge. And another thing that he did tell me, because I did when I was in high school, um, my first year of high school actually, or was it my sophomore year? I actually went to uh what is it called? It's called River Edge. People in Chicago know what it is. A mental health facility, like in a
Mhm.
day program though. Like I was never institutionalized, but I was able to use the resource because um around the time I got raped
Mm.
and was getting molested, I got diagnosed with PTSD. It was never something that I had to get medicine for. But my husband also talks to me about like how I just get super defensive and I think the worst first. But that's that's protection for me. And some of that is discernment. So me coming from uh, a history of abuse, it's just not something that I want to continue.
Yeah, it seemed like you wanted to take up for yourself. When did you ever stop hitting your husband? Like, did you ever
Oh
stop being
yeah,
physical? Okay.
yeah, I did, and he stopped being physical with me until the I slapped my daughter and he slapped me and he claimed it to be playing, but the built up frustration that was there from the lack of communication, you could just tell it was something behind that. And that's what made me, and it happened that one time, but all it takes is one time, because if you know, you know. But when I went to go get a restraining order, I remember they brought it up that in 2016 I had went to go get a pursue a restraining order, but I never went and got it because that's when we were getting physical with each other.
Okay. What was one of the worst altercations you all had?
The time that he choked me. So I can count on one hand when these things happen.
Okay.
So it was like maybe 3 or 4 times in totality of what we've been together since 2011. So it's that 14 years
Mhm.
altogether, but it's still something that I'm not willing to tolerate moving forward, period,
Yeah.
at all. If we can't respect each other, we don't need to be together. And we have reached that point, but now, since that has happened, I need us to dig deeper to make sure that this is something that we can really do, that we can set boundaries with each other and respect each other and understand each other enough, even if this is something that don't need to work. But I do feel like I do have hope for it though, because that's my support system. I mean, him and my grandmother, that's who's there for my kids. Like my mom, she keeps her distance. My dad just came home and he's becoming a support system. But it's us and our kids at the end of the day. And whether we're
Yeah.
together or not, it's going to be us and our kids. But if we're married, I want to see if we can work it out. I
That's
want to work it out, but we have to be at a clear understanding, not just coexist with each other and it be so surface level that when something happens deeper, or we get into another disagreement, or if something is bothering us and we bottle it up and we being passive aggressive, like that's just not okay. How do we
mhm.
prevent that? How do we, so
Yeah.
that that's what I mean by exploratory. Can we
Okay.
handle this again if we ever met at odds while we're growing, because
Mhm.
we're both growing. My husband, before everything happened, he never had his own apartment. He never had to pay bills on his own. It was always me trying to figure stuff out, but now, he's more independent thinking. He can, so we are growing together. He didn't have
Mhm.
the best upcoming. His mom is there, and
Mhm.
she was a single mom. So not having a dad, around, or a man figure, his father figure passed away,
Mhm.
once he turned like 14. So
Mhm.
he didn't really have a firm example. And that I do understand. But at the same time, he I do see his dedication to his job and everything, but I just need to make sure that you can have that same dedication to making me feel secure,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And vice versa. Do you feel secure? Do you feel like this is a safe space? Do you feel like we can really work this out and not be resentful towards each other? And that's why it's required for us to go to therapy. And he feels like he don't need therapy, but he has acknowledged that he does have things he has not dealt with. So we're just at that barrier. We're communicating, the needs, but he's at that barrier of finding somebody he can trust to talk
Yeah.
to, and it not feel like he being interrogated because he crazy or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And where does he work again?
He works for Catholic Charities. He's been there
Mhm.
since my baby, since 2016.
Okay. And mentioning that he does have things that he has to work through. I know that, you know, you said that do you still have how do you PTSD? I'm sorry, from the abuse you went through when you were younger?
My therapist hasn't brought it up, but she has, I'm sorry, y'all, let me get my hair done. But she has said that I had major depressive disorder. It's nothing that's medicated. But it's something that I do deal with sometimes. But I really have been on a healing journey because I didn't acknowledge it as much as I need to, but I did have a little rough upbringing. It was a little
But
rough.
how old were you when that happened to you?
I was around 14, 15.
And who did that to you? Like, you don't have to like name them specifically if you don't want to, but like,
I had a cousin um who was molesting me, and he was way older than me. My mom trusted him to be around us. But he would sleep in the room where we would sleep, and he would come and put his mouth on me. And then my stepfather's um cousin raped me
mm,
because my mom had just gotten us back. She didn't have custody of us. My grandmother raised me for the majority of my life. My mom, she came around. We had a relationship. Like, she was the apple of my eye. But I went through things when I actually went to stay with her. And I learned why,
mm,
it was okay for my grandma to still be raising me. Because I felt like, my grandma was going through her own stresses. And she had a section of time where she would beat on me too, out of
mhm,
frustration.
yeah,
And some would call it discipline, but this wasn't no discipline. Like, she was frustrated,
mhm,
and at one point I ended up fighting back. But my grandma is my baby to this day, so
mhm,
we've had our healing moments too. But I've had to go through a lot of healing, and I'm used to people that I care about hurting me. So
mm,
I'm just in a place where I'm just trying to figure out, like, at what point do I keep these relationships? Do I leave all of these relationships? This is my family.
mhm. And you did, man. I thought you said one of your grandmothers passed. One of them passed away.
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you, I was blessed to have my great grandmother. So my great grandmother passed away. Her
Okay.
and my grandmother tag team to take care of me and my next two sisters. I'm the oldest of eight. So they took care of my mama first three kids.
Wow. Wow. And you had your grandma. That is such a blessing. Grandmother
Yeah.
and great grandmother, you know.
They
And
tag team.
obviously, I mean, and I'm not, and I understand what you mean. Like, sometimes I agree. Like, even when I was younger, my dad, he hit me too hard. He really did. But I don't hold nothing against him. I don't. He's
Mm-hmm.
not alive anymore. But I just understand that sometimes people, they had a rough life and just didn't know how to,
And hurt
you
people
know,
hurt people. So if we
yeah,
heal ourselves, you know, the life,
yeah,
the world will be a better place.
right. And so when that happened to you, how did that make you feel at that time? Did it make you afraid of your stepfather's cousin?
Mm, I was afraid to confront him, or ever see him again. But my mom actually told me I was lying. So
Mm,
yeah.
okay. And so is that a part of the reason why you and your mom don't talk?
No, I have forgiven her for that. Like, I didn't really hold that against her. We stopped
Okay.
talking after I had my kids. I had to
Mm.
have my kids, and um my mom went through a lot of postpartum depression, especially after having my youngest sibling, who is the same age as my youngest daughter, 6.
Oh,
So, um, yeah, we went through a lot. I
okay.
remember I know it started, like, the first time I never talked to my mom was, it started over a TV. And her and my husband and I and my stepfather, we fought outside in public because they
Mm-hmm.
came in my house that my mom she did. She let us have her old Section 8 apartment. It wasn't Section 8, but it was low income because she
Mm-hmm.
had moved. And they came in there because they still had the key and stole our TV because they said my 1-year-old broke one of their TVs.
Oh,
And we had literally just bought, like, that was the first TV we bought. Like, it
wow.
was that was the first time where I was just like, no, this ain't it. This
Yeah.
ain't it. So
And so y'all were pregnant at the same time.
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
I
I think that's cool, but
Yeah, I was actually there because we weren't talking before she had my sister, but I was like super pregnant coming back from Vegas from a business trip. And I went up there to sit with my baby sister in the NICU because my mom doesn't trust like the medical system and stuff like that. But
yeah.
yeah, so I was still there. My kids, they know their aunts and their uncles and stuff like that. So, and they're their only nieces and nephews. My mama's only grandkids. So
Okay.
yeah.
Are you able to talk to your baby sister?
Yeah. She's
Okay.
so Yeah, for her birthday's in October. We celebrate their birthdays and stuff.
Okay.
So I'll see my siblings, you know.
Okay. And so your youngest child and your mom's youngest child, are they like good cousins? Well, no, they're not cousins. Hold on. They're
No,
like
my sister is my daughter's aunt.
yeah,
Yes.
right. Are they
Yeah.
like well connected? I don't know how I'm trying to say this. Are they close?
Yeah, they just some little catty little girls. Well, she did this. She was being mean to me. I'll be like, oh my gosh. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Listen, we would have to break your life down in sections. Cause we
Yeah.
can't really we can't get it's so many different questions I have, but I love the fact that you sound like you're growing, you know,
Thank
and
you.
the fact that y'all have went through it all, like you and your husband. So it's like it just
And
seems
there's
like
so many people that's rooting for us too.
I
Cause my
am I
people,
am.
they check me. Oh,
Mhm.
thank you. Yeah, they'll check me. Like, I feel like you could have done something different, especially one of my bridesmaids.
Mhm.
She comes and she checks me all the time. My grandma, she'll check me, but she'll defend me first before anything because you don't mess with my grandbaby.
Come on.
But she talks to me, and she tells me, because she was abused by my grandfather, and I only see my grandfather like twice in my life. Um, and she talks to me about it. So like I said, I'm fighting cycles. So
Yeah.
if my husband and I are able to overcome this, like
Yeah.
it's really God for real.
Yeah. Then it should hopefully you're trying to get it so it don't pass down to your children. I get that.
Hmm.
So anyway, I appreciate you allowing me to, just dive into your story and get the word out about this. If there's anything that you would like to leave with, the people who watch this before we leave, what is that?
Um, Healing is the most thing. But we have been programmed to think and be certain ways, and we absorb our environments. My biggest thing, the goals and dreams that I have in life, I can't allow these things to stifle me emotionally, mentally, financially. So I've really had to reprogram myself, and it hasn't been easy because, like you said, it's a lot to uncover. Especially somebody who has dealt with so much. If I could tell you this one experience that I had that made me know that I needed a little bit extra help to get to the point that I want to be and where I'm on my way to. So this part of my life is really literally called reprogram. And I wrote a book about it as well. But let me tell you about this story that made me realize that I really needed to reprogram. One, I had already invested in a life coach who also goes deeper into like, behavioral patterns and stuff like that. But I was in an entrepreneurship class. And this lady who came in to talk to us gave us all a sheet with like 100 like traumatic experiences. So I checked everything but one. And everybody else, she was like, how many had one? How many had two? How many had three? And it was only like four of us who had almost all of them. And I'm like, you expect me to sit here and tell you tell you about these traumas that I have in front of everybody. And I had to speak up because you don't tap into somebody's trauma like that without having the proper things in place for them to be able to recover. And because it was, kind of spiraling a little bit and I felt it, I was able to go talk to somebody who helped me catch it. But that's when I knew, like, you set apart, little mama. You got a lot of healing to do. You gonna have to end up telling your story. And this is this is not my first time telling my story. I've told my that ancestral story and the sex abuse story in 2019. And I just keep transforming and becoming, somebody new. Each level at each layer that I heal and unfold, it just leverages me to something else, because all that trauma does is blocks you and it keeps you in a poverty mindset, and a mindset where you just feeling sorry for yourself. And that's not a place to stay. That's not a good place to stay, especially, with me striving and thriving to be a woman of faith, right? Because I know some people will hear the story and, they may try to judge, but at the end of the day, I am a human. And my goal is to be as righteous as possible. And that's probably another reason why I fell out with my family. Because I do want to be a righteous woman. And sharing these things, are helping me to uncover that. So I say that to say, if you see something, fix it. That's it.
As you speaking, I'm over here. I had to look. I said, "Who is this I'm talking to?" Jade Cross. I'm like, "Who is this?" This is some powerhouse in front of me. I mean, you are something serious. Because my whole thing is we overcome by the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony. We're
Mm-hmm.
overcomers. When we share our testimony, we come up to a new level. You cannot use this against me. I've already shared it. And I
Absolutely.
love how in 8 Mile, Eminem, he shared all of that. So what can you say against me?
Yes,
Everything you tried to use again, I've already told it. So now what you got?
exactly.
And you're telling it as you are prospering. And I'm saying prospering because you said you got hope. Then you know that you got to be the one to hope. It can't be me. Oh, I have hope as long as you got hope. You understand? So since
Yes.
you said it, I'm in agreement with you that this is happening. And I love when you said we absorb our environments. We have to be careful who we surround ourselves with or by wherever we go. And so I see why you had to disconnect, even even when that's family. We have to
Mm-hmm.
disconnect because we absorb our environments. Thank you so much, Miss Jade, for sharing this with me. And I'm like, ooh, you over here getting a crochet. I didn't know you could do it like that. I'm like, I'm loving this look.
Thank
I'm
you. I
loving
can't wait
this.
to see it finish.
Yes. And I remember, I mean, I started looking at your page a little bit. Just share because I'm gonna have to get my son off the bus real quick. But
Okay.
what do you do? If you could say it in like 2 minutes or less, what do you do? Where can we find you? Um, 2 minutes, go.
Okay. I'm a millennial economic innovator. I have a expertise in program management, financial literacy, and marketing. So I help people to be seen, visionaries to execute their visions into reality. I am impact focused, I wealth and influence. So any of those things that any women primarily need, women visionaries, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, I am here. JCrossFrench.com is my website. You could take a look to see if any services that I provide fits your needs. Overall, I'm a consultant and I'm looking to build with other women who have billionaire trajectory.
I love it. And thank you all so much for watching. Remember, we release these segments every Wednesday of 2025 at 8 o'clock p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever else I choose to release it. Until next time, bye.